Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Ray the Flying Squirrel here, and I'm Mighty the Armadillo here, and we are back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Super Mario Advance for the Game Boy Advance. So, last time, we essentially did manage to finish up with the forms of World 5 as well as World 6. Despite we've come across into quite a lot of depths here and there, specifically in Level 5-2, Level 5-3, and most notoriously out of them all though is World 6-2, mainly because we got to keep on riding with those specific bird-like enemies. So, apart from those side of things though, we did those worlds okay enough, don't you think? Well, I was thinking about the same thing too. So anyway, today for this video is about the fact that we're going to be continue playing for this game, and this time we're going on to the 7th and the final world in the forms of Super Mario Advance. So because of that, here we go on to World 7. Now, unlike in any other stages in the game though, as you probably already expect, World 7 only contains 2 levels. So because of that though, that basically though is about the fact that we got able to do a lot of like exploration going on, ranging from the forms of trying to find occasional mushrooms, so just in case we do need to get some more health, in case about the fact that World 7 is going to be tremendously tricky and difficult, mainly due to the fact that obviously since we're still playing through Super Mario Advance after all, this means about the fact that we still have to deal with the forms of screen crunch every once in a while. So yeah, you might get the idea about that. So anyway, a few things we want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date of course is I would say today is the 12th of May today, in some cases in 2024 today, and suffice to say, happy 1 year anniversary of the game's release of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So while looking back on it though, it still looks incredible even to this day. Especially because we've already mentioned about this since yesterday, that basically The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is doing really well in terms of sales numbers, because as far as we've already pointed things out, that currently though is about the fact it's now on to 20 million copies sold, which is incredible. Yeah, especially after the events of that particular, I would say since like technically 10 months ago, because it did somehow manage to stay, since in Journey forms of by the end of March in this year specifically. So because of that though, now in regards to the forms of the upcoming Nintendo Direct at some point in Journey forms of in June, much like the forms of how it does it in not only 2018 as well as 2019 and as well as 2021, 2022 for Partner Showcase, and finally last year for 2023. That's obviously though, as far as we've already established that before, that I don't think we can able to actually hear about the forms of a Switch successor anytime soon, but that's perfectly fine for us anyway though, because obviously though is about the fact that we're just really looking forward to see the final few games is going to be revealed for the sake of the forms of the regular Nintendo Switch before we move on to the Switch successor. So because of that though, but then again, we still have no idea what the name is going to be, and it's especially noticeable concerning for the fact that I'm pretty sure we've only got about 11 days left now until Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake is going to be coming out, and we still have no idea of what the actual second half of the year is going to be like, for the sake of the forms of the final horizon, for the sake of the Nintendo Switch lifespan. So because of that though, we shall definitely see what happens in due time. So because of that though, now as far as I've heard about something is that there is actually going to be the fact that maybe, just maybe, we might able to actually see Sonic Central Direct at some point in this month in particular, just like the forms of how it does it back in during the forms of been not only in 2021 but also with 2022 and even with the forms of 2023 as well. So this might actually be, well, I don't know if it's true or not, but I suppose we'll find things out until specifically later down the road during the forms of in May, just before when Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake is going to be coming out. So because of that though, and also something's worth noting for Mighty is about the fact that we've only got about 5 more days to go until My Little Pony A Zephyr Heights Mystery is going to be releasing on multiple platforms basically. So because of that though, I'm sure about the fact that Sonic could technically mention more about that game, but not now anyway though, just because as far as I'm aware, we are still basically trying to able to be more excited for the sake of the forms of, you know, playing through Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, except we can play that game on the go at long last, you know? So, either way though, as far as I'm aware, it's about the fact that, oh, you were so close during that time though, Mighty, because you're almost gonna finish off Green Bodo right there, and believe it or not though, I'm gonna have to backtrack for a bit, so just in case I do need to get some more hearts potentially, so that way I need to try to survive for this particular fight, so either way though. Now, as far as I'm usually concerned with this point right here, technically this is not gonna be the final time we're gonna be seeing Green Bodo in this, because as far as I'm aware, once we're done with the forms of World 7, oh, you might be thinking to yourself about the fact that, well, this entire version is over. Well, actually, as it turns out, there's going to be more to it than that, because then again, we'll talk more about that if we somehow manage to able to get closer towards the end of this particular, well, World 7 in general. So because of that, though, concerning for the fact that the final level in the game, which appears to be World 7-2, is expected to be a lot longer, and there's also a lot of emphasis on exploration, so... But either way, I got myself my glorious mushrooms, so hey, yeah. Yep, exactly, for surely. So, anyway, there's also another thing I want to point out as well, is that I did not even notice there was actually going to be a new series that has been recently came up, well, for the American version anyway. That's what appears to be by the forms of the returning the Very Odd Parents. So, because of that though, what I can tell is about the fact it's completely in CGI or something, no longer in 2D. So as far as I'm concerned, there's actually a series called The Fairly Odd Parents: A New Wish. So obviously that was about the fact they still managed able to feature Cosmo and Wanda, I think is what it says anyway. And as far as I'm aware, is that rather than having ourselves Timmy, so I believe it's going to be a completely different character this time around though, which I suppose that's kind of different, but either way though, it's hard for me to explain about that, so it's now my turn to tackle through the final stage in Super Mario Advance, and as of course, World 7-2, so we can able to beat Wart once again, except this time on the Game Boy Advance. So because of that though, I kind of believe about the fact that this is going to be the third time we're going to be able to experiencing World 7-2 in this particular Super Mario Bros. 2 game, or in Super Mario USA in Japan. So relatively speaking, that was about the fact that, as we expected, that this place is going to be huge, so we can able to do a lot of exploration, which is especially noticeable about the fact that there might be some, you know, ace coins around here, so we can pretty much guarantee about the fact that we are gonna have to do a bit of backtracking here and there, and I have no idea, I just somehow got killed by that ninja right there for some odd particular reason, but oh well, no big deal, because the checkpoint is already active if you move on to the next part. So because of that though, whilst unlike in Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3, that basically though we have to deal with no checkpoints in each and every single level. I mean, that's just maddening, don't you think? Well, true that, especially concerning for the fact that the majority of some stages are quite tricky, and some of them are actually pretty easy for our tastes anyway, so yeah, anyway. And of course, this place is filled to the brim with a lot of sparks everywhere, so because of that, I always found these sparks to be kind of annoying in this particular game right here, especially noticeable, you can't really tell of where they surprises you, or in some cases though, it's about the fact that it's kind of hard to see with that particular screen crunch in mind. So anyway, and it's also worth noting for is about the fact that when it comes to forms of something else I could possibly try to able to explain about this is that apparently though is about the fact that yes indeed we did somehow receive the second trailer for the sake of the forms of Despicable Me 4 recently. And believe it or not, it's about the fact that the Mega Millions did become true. So because of that though, yeah, because they did somehow manage to show us the forms of specific superpowers for certain Mega Minions, as far as I'm usually concerned. So yeah, that's as far as I can try to say about it, apart from the fact that I believe that it did say it in during the forms within the trailer anyway, when it comes to the release date in mind, that obviously though is going to be based off from the American version, as far as I'm aware, that is about to due out at some point on the 3rd of July in the American version, whilst compared to the UK version has to wait until the 12th of July. I think it's what it says anyway, according to the forms of the Odeon Cinema website, where I've double checked on it. Yeah, I was thinking about that. So anyway, there's also another thing I want to point out as well, is that unfortunately though, is about the fact that Xbox, as far as the actual game company as far as I'm concerned, is actually acting quite strange recently. And that's what appears to be about the fact that unfortunately though, Xbox shuts down multiple of studios, including Hi-Fi Rush, Developer, and more. So because of that though, yeah, it seems very awful indeed. Especially concerning for the fact that we have no idea of what's gonna happen for the sake of the forms of Hi-Fi Rush. We'll make it happen for the sake of the actual Switch port, or the Switch successor port, or anything else like that. Mind you, it's a bit difficult to tell at this point, because we already know for the fact that it already came out not only on Xbox Series X/S, but also with the forms of PlayStation 5, at least what I've heard anyway. Oh, did you know about that fact that there was actually a game called Braid Anniversary Edition? Oh yeah, what about it? Apparently though, it did somehow originally say that it was supposed to be releasing just recently during the forms of it by the end of April, for the sake of the 30th of April, for multiple versions for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, and even PC Steam, and of course the Nintendo Switch version. Now what I've noticed is about the fact that I did manage to double check on the actual Nintendo UK website, and it still did say 30th of April, but for whatever reason is that the actual price tag never shows up, and especially noticeable about the fact that I honestly have no idea what the heck is happening to that particular game itself. I mean, sure enough though, we are pretty much excited when that particular Anniversary Edition now finally happened, when it comes to like multiple versions of that particular game in mind. But either way, so let me go ahead and choose Peach quickly, because I know for a fact that getting that Ace coin is actually impossible for Mario. So let me just do this, and just go ahead and lose a life by simply get killed by the actual spark. And now we can able to switch back to Mario, so just in case I don't have to worry about, you know, stick with one character in particular. And actually, as it turns out, we've only got about one more Ace coin left until we're basically done collecting every single Ace coins, basically. So because of that, though, but again, if you think about the fact that we are basically done, right? Well, as it turns out, there's going to be more to it than that, as far as what Ray has already explained about this before. So, yeah, let me just go ahead and quickly climb down for those chains. And we've met again with Bodo right here, but this time with the red Bodo. But, unfortunately, though, I accidentally died due to that particular, you know, fireball. What do you expect? So, oh well, no big deal. So let me just quickly go approach that door and... Oh, are you kidding me? Oh, jeez. I hate with the fact that we have to fight her on the conveyor belt. So because of that, though, that's going to be a little bit tricky right here. Okay. You are kidding me! Seriously! Okay, okay. Fine, I'll just waste 2 lives on the exact same room. There we go. I somehow managed able to finally win through there. So, because obviously though, before I deal with the forms of that specific Bodo with that particular Phantom Mask, so basically though, I need to backtrack for a bit and ignore that red Bodo down there for a while, because despite the fact that it does not contain anything if you defeat her. So let me just go ahead and go to the different room right here, and able to try to avoid a lot of enemies, including Shy Guys and Sparks, of course. And there we go, we've got every single Ace coins now. So because of that though, actually kind of think about it, I think the fastest way I can able to actually get back up there, if I struggle at platforming, well, I can just simply just take away one of my lives again, and exponentially, I can able to actually do some bit of quick runs to able to actually go back to the respawn point, just like that. So, yeah, good thinking there, especially noticeable concerning for the fact that if you try to do this normally though, that can take a very long while to able to actually get this process going. So, yeah, anyway, Oh, and speaking of which though, did you know about the fact that recently, that Sonic Mania Plus has recently came out on the phones of mobile devices now? Oh yeah, because it did somehow technically mentions that ever since in about a couple of weeks or months ago. Yeah, because as it turns out, it's now being accessible for that particular game on mobile phones now. So because of that though, we would have liked able to try that particular version of the game out, but honestly though, I think 3 versions is quite enough, don't you think? Yeah, especially noticeable because concerning for the fact that obviously we still managed to play Sonic Mania on the Nintendo Switch version, because obviously we can play the game on the go, of course. And on top of that, when it comes to achieving not only achievements, but also trophies for both PS4 and Xbox One versions. So, and thus what I can tell is that once again, much like the Forms of how it does it on Sonic Prime Dash, it does manage to require us to be able to actually access to a Netflix account. So because of that, bit of a bummer though, especially concerning for the fact that I would have liked able to try a test out with that particular version of the game, but as far as I'm aware, is that just like in the forms of in Sonic 1, Sonic 2, as well as Sonic CD on mobile phones, including Sonic 4 Episode 1 and Episode 2, that it does manage to feature touch controls. So, anyway, it's time to face off against with Wart.
I am the Great Wart. Ha ha ha!
And this is without doubt is also a very difficult boss fight, mainly because of multiple factors. For one, obviously though, just like the forms of how it does it on the original NES version, as well as the Super Mario All-Stars version of that particular fight, basically though is about the fact that you have to be very cautious with his bubble attacks, because if you dare touch the bubbles, then obviously you're about to get hit a lot. And another thing is worth noting for is about the fact that obviously we have to deal with this boss fight in screen crunch mode. So because of that though, you can't really tell of what Wart is actually doing, although just like the forms of how it does it on the NES version as well as the Super Mario All-Stars version of the game, the actual machine will actually help us for able to actually just to pick up the actual turnips, and you can able to once again toss Wart or toss the actual turnip right at Wart's mouth, so that way it actually counts a hit. So yeah, pretty standard stuff for the most part right here, especially concerning for the fact that obviously though we can't backtrack or anything, unless if we select Luigi, then it should be okay. But since we're going to be using Mario throughout the whole fight, this means we can't go backtrack to able to actually get those heart plants again. So, in fact, relatively speaking, I will say that World 7-2 is actually slightly easy compared to the forms of how it does it on the other 2 versions, but still it's incredibly difficult, regardless of the forms of trying to go for a lot of exploration, especially concerning for the fact that you always have to go after the ace coins, basically. But then again though, luckily we don't have to worry about collecting all these ace coins anymore, until specifically if we get around on doing Super Mario Advance 2, Super Mario World, if we decided able to go after every single dinosaur coins. Oh goodness gracious, wish us luck if we decided able to tackle for that version coming up. So because of that though, but that won't be for a very long while, especially concerning for the fact that obviously though is about the fact that, like we've already established that before, that Sonic is definitely getting close towards the end of Sonic's story in Sonic Rush before he moves on to the second half in terms of the forms within Sonic Rush. So, and as far as Tiana is concerned, that she's basically now on to the final boss in terms of the forms within Princess Peach Showtime already. So no matter what though is about the fact that I can assure you the actual progression has actually gone pretty swell, although despite the fact that sometimes though is about the fact that, you know, she did occasionally miss several of those sparkle gems, as you probably already expect. So anyway, alright, not doing too shabby right here. But still, you need to be very careful right here. Ah, dang it all! Fine. I'm pretty sure that we now down to 55 lives at this point. So, I suppose no big deal, because otherwise though, that thankfully the checkpoint has now been active every time whenever you die in a boss fight, so you can obviously do multiple attempts to able to actually do a successful run when it comes to dealing with this boss anyway. So, anyway, there's also technically the last thing I want to point out is that, for I've heard anyway, that a lot of people complain about the forms of one of those specific games called Angry Birds Go, where basically that game is basically like the equivalent to Mario Kart, except you're able to actually play as certain characters from Angry Birds. Now, as far as I've noticed, is that everyone else seems to really do like version 1.0 version, because it's a lot more iconic for back in the day, whilst compared to the forms of in version 0.2, this feels like kind of ruined the entire game, at least as far as I can definitely notice right from the get-go. Like, for instance, with all that mechanics have been changed, or specifically certain stuff doesn't work out, although it's a bit tricky to tell as far as I can usually discuss on that, because, you know, I was kind of able to try to concentrate on this fight, because then again though, sometimes the screen crunch will definitely make the entire boss fight a bit of a challenge as far as I'm concerned. But either way, and there goes Wart, and every time you defeat Wart, you get yourselves about 10,000 points, which is quite a lot. Yeah, and there we go folks, that pretty much does it for Super Mario Advance. Well, to be more specifically, the first half of the forms of Super Mario Advance, because once you beat the game, then basically though we've once again rescued those citizens from the sub-con, and basically though we were able to actually celebrate its whole entire victoriousness, and as a result that, well, depending on how many times you play specific characters, much like the forms of how it does it in the NES version, alongside with the Super Mario All-Stars version of the game, basically though it actually shows us how many times you played those specific characters. Like, for instance, we play as Mario 5 times, and we play as Luigi 5 times, same applies with Toad and Peach. And as you can tell, we somehow managed able to get all 4 characters as an MVP now. So pretty swell if I have to say so. So, and actually, as it turns out, it's just all a dream, just like the forms of how it does on the previous 2 versions. So, again, I will admit though, I do apologize for my commentary, it's a little bit slightly iffy at this point, because that's as far as we can able to talk about in terms of the forms of this in this whole entire weekend, as far as I'm aware. But let's just say about the fact that, well, until the next couple of weeks' time, that it'll get a lot more promising, as well as exciting as well. Now, as far as I'm aware, the staff credits remains the same, except there are some noticeable differences here and there. Like, for instance, they somehow managed to change specific names for certain enemies, in addition to certain error mistakes, or although, as far as I've noticed, is that they might added in a new boss, which appears to be Robo-Bodo, because obviously we've already fought her before, ever since in World 3-3. So, anyway, so as soon as you beat the game for the first time, you do realize you do manage able to actually unlock a new challenge that is only exclusive to this version of the game, and that's what appears to be Yoshi Challenge, where basically though you have to find those Yoshi eggs and journey in every single level in the game. I think it only contains like 2 Yoshi eggs and journey forms within each and every single level. So as far as I'm aware though, for this point guys, this particular playthrough is not over yet, because as far as I'm aware, as we pretty much already expected about the fact that this will be a 400% completion, as you probably already expect. So, but either way though, yeah, that's as far as we can able to talk about the forms of today's topic at this point, guys. I mean, sure enough though, it's about the fact that I'm very surprised about the fact that this particular version of the game on Super Mario Bros. 2, aka Super Mario USA in Japan, goes by a lot longer this time around, which is very surprising. Yeah, because despite the fact that we still have to go through 7 worlds, of course, but of course we have to able to try to do with a lot of exploration, you know. So of course, this entire game is indeed the end. But of course, as I said this before, it's not exactly over yet, because like I said before, we're about to do the second half of the game by tackling through Yoshi Challenge. So, I'm not exactly sure how long is it going to be exactly, but you might as well stay tuned until specifically for the next couple of weekends before we move on to the next bunch of Let's Plays coming up. So, yeah, I guess with that being said, is that we got the endings of this point right here. So join us next time for more of Let's Play of Super Mario Advance. It's about the fact that we're about to get started with Yoshi Challenge by going into World 1 as well as World 2 to start with. So we'll see you guys until next weekend. Later, fellas.